it feels like there's a bunch of people coming out of the UK and out of Australia. And I'm curious why you think they're coming to the United States, why they're leaving their countries, why they're speaking more on independent platforms. I was trying to explain this to a friend. Like, my hypothesis is basically that they feel so restricted internally that when they find people on the internet that are speaking freely or expressing their views, it's such a breath of fresh air. They need to like kind of get out of the system. But what has your experience been?
Yeah, they're not supported in Australia. You know, a lot of small towns all around the world, they're not supported, but it feels like the whole country is a small town. And no matter how far you break out of your small town and move cities, it's still the same, just a different flavor. Like it's still this element of like people want you doing well, but just not better than them. And if you try and break out of the mold, like you are a loser. Like you're what Australians would call a drop kick. You are like you're going nowhere. And the nature with it is when you achieve some level of success, they seem to support you, but when you embark on a new journey in order to achieve the success, you're not supported. But then even when you achieve a level of success and you're trying to break into another mold, you're not supported again. And so like you get a level of success, you're applauded, but then you try and achieve more success and you're not applauded until you get that level of success. And so no matter the level that you're in, the actual pursuit of breaking free into a new level is the challenge in Australia. It's not supported. And I mean, obviously when there's people that are trying to grow, there's only 27 million people in Australia. And I mean, they're importing 700,000 people a year and they're all from China. And so Australia at this rate is not even going to be Australia at some point. And, but like, I just think that it's very hard to grow because you do feel like you're in a cage. And yeah, you move the needle so much more on what you're trying to achieve when you go to somewhere like America. Mm-hmm. Hence why people do it.
Yeah. You went through what would be like a classic like 2017, 2019 cancellation in the States, but you went through it like in the last year. Can you walk us through like the experience that you had and then like as like honestly as you can? Because I just want to put people in perspective around what it feels like to be in a world where people go after your sponsors, people will destroy you, go after your money, go after your family, do death threats for simply stating an opinion that is like not illegal, not even like a harsh opinion, not racist, like not really sexist. Can you walk people through that? Because I don't think a lot of people in the United States understand how good we have it right now. And your story is pretty insane.
Yeah, well, I said that I don't want my partner working unless she wants to work. So I want to work as hard as I can to give my partner the freedom of choice to make her decisions based on passion and desire, not survival and need. And I'm a misogynist. I'm a sexist, like, piece of shit for wanting that. Like, and I mean, look, you asked, the question you asked was how was the experience? And it was an interesting thing to say the least, but what I will say is that it wasn't like a groundbreaking, oh, the world's over. I didn't really exist in that world. I was already out of that. Like, it happened 2 weeks before I moved to America. I also had the way it all fell. There were so many synchronicities that lined up that made me so calm in the whole thing. I was literally just speaking on a podcast just then, and I was explaining how like it was this positive feedback loop of you go through something that was perceived to be a massive storm and you're so calm in it and you go, holy shit, I'm not even fazed by this storm. I feel unstoppable. Like if I'm not fazed through this, then like what's going to make me fazed? Mm-hmm. And so it was quite actually a liberating process because it just reinforced that like, what's the worst that can happen? Mm-hmm. And it was quite freeing. But yeah, I mean, thousands of messages every single day. The ABC, every single news article had a different lens. You know, people were reaching out. I was getting flamed by the biggest influencers in Australia. And you know what I think it lacked? The opposing view. I think it lacked common sense. That's all. Mm-hmm. Like everyone can have an opinion, but surely when you're asked to elaborate on the opinion, you can elaborate on your opinion. But no, they couldn't, because there was actually no substance to the opinion. It was all just projection. They had an area of their life that they didn't actually like, and maybe they knew it or they didn't know it, and it was just operating subconsciously. They didn't like what where they were in their life in the particular topic that I was talking about. So then when they see someone that's young, good looking and successful say that thing that he wants to provide for his partner, they freak out and they go, you're a dick. Like, podcast mic should be expensive. Like, I don't know. There was never any substance to really anyone's opposing view.
But I think one of the things people don't understand when cancellations happen is, one, they're going after a lot of negative press. They want to make you feel bad, blah, blah, blah. But the most impactful thing is they go after your ability to make money. So in this case, your ability to provide for your future wife. And you lost a lot of sponsors during this time period off social media, right?
Yeah. I lost $360,000 of contracted revenue in 4 days. Like 12-month contracts, like one after the other, just an email. Hey, as per section this in the contract, we're canceling your contract. And it wasn't when it happened, it was when I doubled down. So when they called me out, I didn't lose the sponsors. But when I called them a clown, I did. When I was like, no, you fucking clowns, I believe in what I say. And I'm not bending over and saying sorry for something that I believe in. Grow up. That was when I lost the sponsors. And so what it reminded me of was like the selling of your soul concept came to life. Because I could have just said sorry and bent over and lubed up, and they would have probably stuck around.
Yeah.
And be like, look, everyone makes mistakes. It's fine. I'm not doing that. I didn't make a mistake. I spoke my mind. It's what everyone should do. And they should have the courage enough to do so. And they should be willing to say something that's on their mind, even though it may not be cheered. And then they should have the ability to reflect if they think that they should align that and maybe make it better. But if I'm open-minded and I onboard what they say and I still don't think it serves me or the people around me or a greater good, and I still believe in my message, it's not like I should just onboard what you say and think just in pursuit of kind of being liked. And so, yeah, I lost a lot of brand deals. I lost a lot of sponsors. But I think when you look at all of those things, if you look at them in the right way, they're actually extremely life-changing. And so then I was blessed that the same week that it all went down, I had another venture that blew up and I made a bunch of money through that. So then it was, again, this positive loop of I actually don't need the brand deals. And so I'm never going to be reliant on other people's dime ever again.
That's where, like, as an observer of your path, it's been really fun to see you become more anti-fragile in that standpoint. I know we talked about it when we were both back in Austin for a little bit, like 2 months ago, just on the phone. And then you built like out this whole course and started building out all these different ways that you can decrease your ability to be basically coerced through these advertisers.
Yeah. And you know what's so freeing about it is when you don't feel dependent on anything, you can speak your mind more freely. And so I just shortened the gap between my thoughts and what I say. Like, I just don't have the filter because I don't really fear, what am I going to lose? Like, the whole underlying thing is like, you can take away everything before my soul. Like, you can take my followers, touch wood, you can take all my money, everything. But like, when my head hits the pillow, I want to be like integral with what I believe. And being able to speak, that's so freeing. Like, for example, I got another sponsor on since then in America. And I was interviewing someone that was quite controversial, and the founder of the company said, I don't want to align myself with him. I would never, ever align my brand with him. And he was pretty direct about it. And I was like, okay, I just won't include you. Whereas before, like, that was how I kept the lights on. That's how I did the podcast. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I just won't include you. And then that ended up meaning I stopped kind of including him in any pod, and I haven't included him since. But I just like, okay, like, I don't want to restrict myself. I want to speak to people that I'm curious in. And if you don't want to align with that, then I don't want to align with you. Like, I can love you from afar. I can love the brand. I can continue to use your products. But like, I'm trying to build the biggest show in the world here. Like I can't do that by not being me. Like, at least I'm not going to feel full if I do that, because I'm literally going to be liked for someone that I'm not. And that feels fucking empty and shallow. Yeah. So I just think there's so much longevity in my approach now. And that's probably why I've grown so much recently as well.
I'm also really grateful it happened to you on the earlier side of your career, before, like, even though I know you've had a staff and, you know, I've had a lot of homies working with you and you've been collaborating and supporting people throughout the whole process, retiring your mom, stuff like that. But also I think, like, as the numbers go from like 6 to 7 figures to 8, it becomes harder and harder and harder. And so to have those conversations earlier on and to build out a framework, because the whole reason I got into podcasting was because it seemed like the place that advertising had the least amount of influence in media. And I think that's so important, just because I think that, like, media is, like, you have to look at the incentive model of media. Who pays for it? It's the advertisers. If they're paying for it, they are the customers of it, not the consumers. So we are productizing the consumers. The mouthpieces of the media just become, you know, if we aren't careful, like regurgitation machines. And that's where podcasting, I think, is actually heading again. Now that we have so much attention, you know, there's I think there's a huge argument to be said that a lot of podcasters were really punk rock during the Trump campaign, and now almost mouthpieces intentionally or unintentionally for an administration that is now the mainstream. And I think it's so hard not to get caught up into sides of teams, not get caught up into, you know, who your sponsors are and what they believe, and then also not get caught up into, like, the ability to change your mind when you're being paid not to. And so to go through that, having that, you know, attempted to be taken from you, and to, like, bridge that, I think just fucking rules.
Oh, dude, I get to a point now where I just don't even care. Like, I had a sponsor a couple months back, and we were going back and forth, and, like, I sent them an email with my final deliverables, and I said, I can't do any more than this. And then they came back with more. Like, I said, like, you're wasting my time now. I said 4 times, we've been going back and forth like 8 emails. This is my end point. And then you come back and you disrespect me by wanting more. So I just ghosted them.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't even want your money. I don't want it. Like, you're being disrespectful. If I receive a contract where they say they own my likeness globally, I just say, no, like, that's ridiculous. Like, I think all these influencers are, like, gaining these audiences, and they have zero competency on how to do a deal, what their value actually is. So they just sell their whole face and name for, like, pennies on the dollar.
Pennies, bro.
It's ridiculous, man. And so now I'm like, after that thing happened, it's the most biggest blessing ever. Like, I remember, like, one of the brands that called me Whoop, right? And I was the face of Whoop in Australia, and literally was the #1 performing UGC ad in the whole country for like 6 months straight. And like, there was the people that run Whoop in Australia, 2 women, and they're like 2 women in their boss bitch era, which is great, but not very favorable for the message that I shared that got a lot of traction. They didn't like that. We were close, literally got flown down to Sydney to, like, do this event with them and all the stuff the week before all the stuff blew out. They didn't even have the courage to email or message me, hey, this is going down, X, Y, and Z. Their head office in Boston sent me an email saying, hey, as per this section, rada, we're cancelling. And like to experience that makes me realize that, like, okay, like, you're actually just a number in this cog of people that they're paying. They have this budget, $1 million a month or whatever it is, and they get to spend it on influencers. And then they dish you 10 grand, and then they dish him 20 grand, and then they pay that guy some commission, and then they kind of, like, have this, like, massive system of all of these faces. And that's how they view you. You're literally just like a face to them. You're not even a person, and you make content for them. And I just went, like, I don't know, when I lost all the deals, I just went, like, really? This is probably the best thing that can happen. I wish I could pull up the message I sent to my mum, because mum was like, are you telling me that you just lost? Like, I just did some numbers, and I know you don't, it's not all about money for you, but I I did some numbers and I worked out that you're telling me that you just lost $360,000 a year in revenue. And mum works at like a supermarket, makes $40 an hour, whatever.
That's amazing for a supermarket in the United States.
Probably not 40. Probably not 40.
Okay.
That's probably generous.
It's also, I know, like $12 for a Subway foot long, so the PPP is different in Australia.
But I also think my mum is like the most amazing person ever, and I'm so glad that she can be so great and caring, and like she's my biggest fan, and she doesn't need all this. I'm gonna give her the world, but she doesn't need all of the money to define her worth like most women do nowadays. A generalization, maybe more so for Australia, but like the reality is like they're tying their worth to their dollars in their bank account, and I think there's so much more value in a woman, and I feel like the right man can see that, and they're not reliant on like that as a value of her worth. But anyway.
Well, just to respond to that quickly, like I think that, so I grew up in a super feminist household, and like my dad and his first wife like heavily influenced like women's rights and Title IX and all this stuff. And the way I see the world right now is it's so important that if a woman wants to become a tennis player, or wants to become a president, or wants to become a chancellor, or wants to become a lawyer, or wants to become an athlete, that they should have a path to do that, and they should be supported in that. And also, if a woman wants to become a mom, because it is one of the most important jobs in the fucking world and they're gifted at it, that needs to be supported as well. And we've gone so far that it's like not championed to be that. Like there is, I think, a trad wife, quote unquote, movement bubbling up, and like there's this like return to Christianity, but I'm secular. I don't know if I don't want it to go like hyper conservative again. I want us just to like dial it back a little bit, and we should live in a world where, you know, my sister can be a herpetologist, live in Australia or Thailand alone, or go get her master's, like, and my wife, who's very talented at tons of things, probably could have been governor of Indiana. She also can be really stoked and not feel like society is looking down on her for being a mom.
Yeah, and I agree with this. I think it needs to be made of passion and desire, though, not survival and need.
100%.
And I think I wonder, and I'm not, I don't like sit in this like trad wife approach, but I do wonder, because for me the way I like to look at things, and I think it gives me a lot of peace, because I feel like I can justify my thoughts better when I live in this way, but I just like to like strip it back deep down to like what I actually want, and zooming out the time horizon enough, not being so short-sighted with my view. And so like expanding out, like if everyone in the world believed in this, what would life look like? And maybe what's the end result of acting in this way right now? And when you can get to that, and the way you get to that is by asking a series of whys and going, okay, why? And then whenever you answer why, okay, why? I'd wonder if the goal was to have more peace, joy, fulfillment in your life, more happiness, call it, I wonder what the path to that actually is. And I truly think that when we strip it back to our biology and what we're actually like, what our body supports, I feel like the thing that is most aligned to that could be the thing where we access the most peace and joy and fulfillment potentially. And so I just like this idea of going, do whatever you want. Like if you're a woman and you want to make millions, go make millions. Sure, do it. Like if you want to be a mum, awesome. Like let's champion that. Let's champion it all. But I think there needs to be an assessment, not just for women, for men as well, an assessment of like, does this serve me or does this not? Is this lighting me up or is this not? Is the outcome of doing this thing actually one that I want? And if we can just constantly assess, then we might be able to course correct and sharpen the sword on the vehicle to actually get to that life. Because like, I don't know, I just think it's too short-sighted. And perhaps maybe a woman that wants to make all this money, and this is just a perhaps, I don't have an answer or stats to back this up, but perhaps maybe this making all this money is coming from some lens of maybe your parents have drilled down something growing up because they had a lacking, or maybe you had a man that treated you like shit and you don't feel safe, or maybe like you feel like you don't want to have kids and you don't want to do all of this, but maybe it's short-sighted and you're not actually looking at your life when you're 40 or 50 or 60 years old, when you don't have kids and you can't have kids. And so maybe maybe there's this lens of like, do whatever you want, but be self-reflective enough to see where this ends up and where you actually end out from acting in this way now. And I think it's too selfish and short-sighted in a lot of ways.
Without a doubt. And I think that I think it's separated via the different generations massively. Like, I think they were all fed different forms of propaganda, from the boomers to the Gen X to the millennial to the Z to the alpha. And they're all kind of reacting and understanding, especially around how to handle and experience feminism and how to have purpose within their lives. Specifically, I know two bros talking on a podcast about women is like whatever, but just my observations. It does feel like there's going to be like a come to Jesus moment where people, like especially women, and also but it happens with men, like I was on this path for sure, where it's like, get the best grades possible, join the best corporation possible, fucking work your ass off at that corporation. And this is where, to your point earlier about like a lot of brands just see influencers as it's just a face, and really it's not even that, it's just an audience they can access to, right? That they can use you as like a mouth hole to like spread their propaganda. But it's this, I watched it within big corporations as well. Like I was at a big pharma company, one of the biggest in the world. And I remember never wanting to be there because it's just not a good fit for me. I'm way more entrepreneurial. But two, I watched them realize like the people who put 20 years in, but hadn't really made it to the top. There was like, you know, if you look at like across the company where, you know, 20,000 people, it's like, oh, these people aren't that useful. And even though they went a direction in this city towards this life, towards this thing, and like you can't technically fire people for this, for age discrimination, but they were definitely like, all of the positions went away on this category, and the companies don't give a fuck necessarily about that. And I probably worked for one of the best ones as far as caring about people. Like I got 9 months severance when I left, but it took like a lot of scheming to make that happen. But it's like they also don't care. And it's funny because I think the Gen X into millennial mentality has been so much more, we're going to join a good company, the career path exists, we'll just do this. I grew up in like a family of entrepreneurs, so like I've never thought that ever existed for me, and people are shocked as it's being like torn away from them. How do you think that, and I do want to get back to, before I move forward, but I do want to get back to you finishing your story about what your mom said, because I interrupted you on the $40. But before that, how do you think about how millennials versus Gen Z view propaganda? Like, how are they influenced by it? The thing that I find the most fascinating, it's kind of like I can tell a deep fake way faster than my dad, right, who's 80. I imagine someone in like Gen Alpha can tell one way faster than me. But where are we being controlled, manipulated differently?
Yeah, well, I think where the Gen Z population is quite confused, I feel. And so with that, the men don't really know how to act. And then the women are confused because they are getting persuaded down a certain path, and, you know, maybe it's making them only be attracted to a certain type of man, and there's not many of them there, so then they feel confused. And so I think there's an element of confusion. So the men are probably being created more weak, and there's more weak men. And the reason that's a problem is because
what does that mean?
I think what that means is it means that we're not creating mission-led men, and we're not creating men. It's not about the muscles they have on their biceps. It's about, we're not creating men that are on a mission. That like comfort is taken over the world, and there's a big drug of comfort. Yeah. And so I think when you're in comfort, there's not enough pleasure or pain. And so you're becoming weak because you're not pushing the boundaries, and you're not seeing if that line is real or imaginary. And when you don't have any mission, I think you don't radiate an energy that people want to be around. So you opt for being weak. And what I mean by that is then you probably are more influenced by the women. But the women act more on emotion than logic, and the media is targeting emotion, not logic. So the people being influenced by the media are way more women than men. They target the women because the women act on emotion, and then they can act emotionally, they can target their media emotionally. So if the women are being more influenced and the men are struggling to get the women they want, the men are just opting for listening to the women. And so it's like, I think that if there was more men that were on a mission and that were reaping all the benefits of being on that mission, they would be able to stand their ground more with confidence. And then they'll be able to actually challenge the women's emotional beliefs and then make more critical thinking happen. And then we'll be able to kind of progress as a species. I wonder if this progressive movement is actually progressive in a positive way.
I think I think it's 100% regressive. Like, this is not my viewpoint on what progress would look like. I don't think it's anybody's. I think it's like anybody who says this is progress is really confused and not looking at the stats around our education and our suicides and our fucking obesity and everything that's going on. I also prefer to use the terms, which use whatever the fuck you want. I'm just like saying from my perspective, like masculine and feminine, because I do think both of those things exist within us. And I do think like the masculine energy is more of the directionally driving energy. And I think a lot of women have had to step into that. Maybe it's because the men are stepping more into other stuff, or because they've been told to wear pantsuits and go fucking step into it. And I think that's fine for a lot of women, but I do think that we as a culture have gotten to a lot more of a feminine in our society. It's probably because Alex Jones turned the frogs gay. I'm not sure. But to your point, when you're saying like, what is the fundamental driver of happiness? And like this entire merch line is actually based on this concept. The floating world is a place of like pure hedonism. It's a place where it only like everything you want happens immediately. You never have to interact with people. You never have to try anything. Because I think everything is on the other side for men and women, on the other side of something challenging. You know, and it doesn't have to be in like the career space. Like Caroline staying up all night taking care of Athena so I can sleep and come work on this mission, and she's working on that mission. Like, I can't say this is more valuable than that one. I actually think hers is a bit more valuable. I don't have the tools that she has to do it, and I have the tools to do this one. And so we can be a team building a family cohesively, both things being valuable. And those are both really hard things. I think that so often like people would rather outsource that challenge to a night nurse so they can go and show up and work their corporate job. And I don't know if I judge that for society, because they're still working hard and aiming a direction. But I do have this guttural sensation that they're going to feel really bad about that on their deathbed or maybe later in life. And if that's you and you had to do it for your situation because you provide for your family, like, I'm no judgment. I'm sorry if that hurt your feelings, but also that's just how I view things.
I wonder, two things I want to touch on that you just spoke about there. But the first one about the night nanny. I wonder if a night nanny, though, and I'm a unmarried single man with no kids saying this, but I wonder if a night nanny is actually a productive thing to have, because I wonder if you need to show up for your kid at night as opposed to sleeping and having full energy to be able to show up in full to them during the day. I wonder if a night nanny is actually a productive way to parent your kids better in the event that you can afford it, because maybe you can actually get proper rest so you're not feeling antsy and angry at the kid complaining throughout the day because you've actually had some sleep. That's an interesting thought. I think
it's so variable per person, and everybody's going to be in a different situation. The point I was trying to make with that was around it's meant to be hard.
Yeah.
Like it is, like, either whether it's during the day or during the night, like you are. It's like the highest level of like dopamine you'll ever feel in your entire life when like your kid looks and smiles at you, and you're like biologically like built to get that oxytocin and whatnot so that you don't give it up. But it is meant to be hard.
Yeah.
And you know, people have to do what they have to do, and no judgment there. It's more of this like making sure that we're outsourcing the right things and embracing the hard things in the right places as well.
Yeah. I learned that Zach Talent is experiencing Charlie, his kid, and the way he views her, and like is just in awe, and how like the chemicals in his body have changed. Like something's been altered in his mind. But like you said there, around one mission is this, the other mission is looking after the baby. I think where the potential problem may lie with how that's perceived is one makes money and one doesn't. And people are putting too much of a value on the money, and they're not recognizing the value of being a mum.
Which is insane. Yeah, I think that's super undervalued right now.
Like, her job's far more significant. Like,
way
it's
more.
like making the shekels is easier than that. And the moment, and you know, one of the arguments that came up when I was talking about I want to be able to work my ass off to give a partner freedom of choice, one was like, what about financial abuse? You know, okay, so you're abusing them financially, and they have to stay with you, and you know that's a touchy subject, and that exists. But my thought around it is like, for a man to financially abuse a woman, he mustn't see her value.
Yeah.
If I recognize that being a mum is far harder than making some shekels, and that her value is far beyond making some shekels, how can I financially abuse her? Because I'm probably more dependent on her than she's dependent on me.
For sure.
Like, and so there's that element there. One thing I want to
I also just think, sorry, just to respond to that. I don't know if that's like it's not very Lindy.
No.
Like again, I think this might be like men who, like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Men who do that though, they fucking suck. And maybe that is more of like they are quote unquote weak men in that situation because they feel so unconfident. They're not feeling loved, like blah, blah, blah,
it's
blah,
from
blah.
insecure, yeah.
It's from a place of insecurity. And it's just like, that sucks to be that dude. And maybe there are more of those dudes in this culture than there used to be, but I think we should try and ix that as fast as possible.
Yeah. And see, I think as you just stated that, I think there may be more of those dudes in this society. And the thing you said before, when you were talking about how women were putting on their man shorts and going to work, the thing you said after that, which I think is a really important thing to outline, you said, and that's fine, but I don't think it's just, I think the problem is leaving it at that's fine with all of these things. It requires no critical thinking and no common sense. We're brushing off things that I don't think should be fine on surface level. If you dig deep and get to a third level why, and you still deem that to be something that serves you and the people around you and makes a greater impact, by all means, that is fine. Great. But I think the problem is we're getting influenced one way. We're not challenging the thought and checking in to see if it aligns with us. And then we're saying, that's fine, you do you. And we walk away and we forget about it. And there's not enough confrontation to actually challenge the beliefs that I think may potentially be hurting our society. And the reason I say may is because they may not be, but you're not even exploring if they are or not. You're just deeming them to be normal.
Yeah, this is my biggest issue with like the scroll, with just people just like consuming scroll, is that I think that our opportunity for reflection, which used to be massive, has just been completely consumed, right? And I think podcasting is a part to blame by this as well. Like people are now like engaging in other people's ideas and being flies on the wall versus allowing for reflection to happen. Like when you are spending, an hour listening to a podcast a day, an hour listening to music, scrolling an hour and a half to 2 hours, going to a full-time job, you have so little space to sit and reflect, to even just let your mind digest what happened that day, to even get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask myself why on a single decision I've made throughout my entire existence. And then if you start to think about that tension built up over days and now years, and to the point of some people decades, like I just think about, I have this like vision in my head of when people used to think Alzheimer's was because this like tau plaque was building up in your brain. And like, I can't imagine just the psychic load that has been built up in the millennials and Gen Z's generations of just unreflected experiences, like unprocessed, unquestioned, unconsidered, distracted.
Yeah, I wonder why it ends in that. Like, I wonder why that is a result of, like, I wonder why people are acting in that way. Like, it's like we're addicted to distractions. We can't go for a walk without calling someone or listening to music. We can't drive in the car with silence. When we wake up and we're type A driven, we can't sit on our bed and just have a sip of some element or electrolytes and just think for 10 minutes, because that would be wasting time. We're filling our days with noise, and then we wonder why we don't have any answers.
And you're describing a productive person, like not even an unproductive person who's just scrolling like literally the whole day. You know what I mean?
Is it productive?
It's not productive, but they're moving a direction. They are like aggressively energized. Maybe they're on some tea.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like think like that, and that's like. But then there's the person that like can't read at an 8th grade level, which is the majority of people in the United States, who like show up to their boring job and then distract themselves all day. So like in the edo punk world that I'm building with like this merch line is basically the way that we've built the economy, because it's all UGC based. Not UGC based. It's all UBC based, so universal basic income based. And they basically the conglomerates have worked out a deal with the government that people get more universal basic income, UBI, if I said it wrong before, but UBI, if they like answer questions to ads as they're consuming. So basically the whole government is like, everybody sits in their own little shells, in their own little worlds, and they get paid by the government based on how many ads they view. They can have as many screens as they can physically handle that day. So people are still like ripping nootropics, and they're still fucking really regretting going out too late the night before. And by going out, I mean sitting at home and having their droids go out and party, and they get like inebriated internally in their little fucking shells. But like, because they can't perform, they can't watch as many ads, which means they don't get as much money in their UBI, because that's the only way this like circular government works when nobody's working anymore.
Wait, let's unpack this more. I want to understand what you're actually talking about here.
This is my fucking, so this merch line is just like a fucking, I'm working on like a comic book series. So this merch line is like a universe that I'm building.
That's so great. Dude.
Yeah, so it's called,
I can't be the only one.
So it's called like Edopunk is this world I'm building, and it's like a 4-story arc. Each arc is like a fashion line drop. So this is the first one. This is the floating world. This is like my dystopian society. This is the direction I think we're heading if advertising is the de facto like business model for a sense-making apparatus. And it's called Edopunk because in the floating world, because this goes back to like ukiyo-e, which was this art movement during Edo period Japan, which literally means the floating world. Before that, it was like a Shinto term that had like a really melancholy, ephemeral tone to it. And I think that's the easiest direction we're going to go. Like, we're going to self-isolate, not because of a plague, but because we're getting paid to, because we have no action. We have no reason to go out and have second or third order consequences. There's no reason to do anything hard, because we're just going to get mainline distraction, get paid for it, and never have to leave your house. And it's just this young boy, Rikyu. He goes out and he gets pulled out of his little world and then goes on basically an adventure through all these different storylines. And so the first one, the floating world, is this comic book that's just like the first arc, and so that is the fashion line is like a representation of that.
It's a pretty scary thought to think that that's actually probably quite accurate to where everything's heading.
I think I'm pretty good at telling the future, I'm not gonna lie. This is like a warning. Like, I view it as a time traveling device to not go that route, and Japan already experienced it in the 1600s, and they got kind of fucked by it.
Yeah, I think it's powerful. I brought it up earlier, but I spoke to Erwin McManus on the show in LA a few weeks ago.
He was the controversial lad?
Sorry?
He was the controversial lad?
No.
Okay.
No. Erwin, he's a pastor. He has mosaic churches, and he's wrote like a bunch of books about communication and frequencies through people and all these different things. He's very interesting. It was a great 2-hour conversation. We spoke about like so many different things. Like, obviously he's a pastor and he's a Christian, but he's one of those ones that I love the way he acts and shows up about it, and he's never trying to prove himself unless you ask. And he said some interesting things, but the thing that he said, the reason why he became a Christian was he zoomed out the time horizon and saw what it would look like if everyone in the world adopted this belief that I believe in, and would I want to be in a world like that? And I think it's powerful to be able to look at that in every lens of your life. So the thing that I'm doing right now, and the way I'm acting, the way I'm thinking, the stories I'm telling myself, the identity I have, if we zoom this out to the finish line, do I like the idea of that world? If the answer is yes, keep doing the thing. But if the answer is no, let's course correct. And you don't need to know what the course correction looks like but you can't keep doing the same thing because you've just realized you don't want the outcome of that thing. And I think most of the actions that we're taking in our life, we actually don't even want the outcome of it.
100%.
We're just acting in the way to fit in, to do X, Y, and Z. But if we can zoom out and not be so short-sighted, we can actually do things that we want in our future. And I like that frame of, he was like, look, if everyone adopt this view that I have, and look, maybe Christianity is not real, but the idea of Christianity and the idea of Jesus, we can't disregard what that's done to the world. And so even if it's the greatest idea and it's not even real, but it's an idea, we can't disregard the amount of change it's had. So it must be a pretty genius idea. And so if I zoom that out enough and I adopt this, whether it's real or not, do I like the future with that? And his answer was yes, and that's what he came.
And he could have looked backwards too, though.
He could have looked backwards, yeah.
I mean, there was a time period where that was like the dominant viewpoint of like the modern world, or their census of the world. And it was a bit of a dark time. I think there's a word for it. I think it was the dark ages, potentially.
Yeah, but I wonder how they're defining it as well.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a bit disingenuous. I don't actually think those people were behaving in the light of Christ.
Yeah.
Like how people would view it as a Christian.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm not religious. And in fact, I grew up with no religion or politics in my family, so everything's
Australian.
So everything's had to be onboarded literally over like the past few years.
What does that feel like? Do you feel ungrounded right now? Do you feel extra grounded?
I feel like it's quite a privilege because I don't need to unlearn anything, and so I truly embody this thing of like onboarding things that serve me and disregarding the things that don't. So if I grew up with a belief, then I would have had to unlearn stuff. I don't really take anything as gospel, like absolutely anything. And I think it's a pretty powerful lens because we just seem to take things from some random influencer you've never met in person. You take what they say as gospel, and then that's a new belief that you have. You read a book and one line and you go, oh, that's real. And I think actually there's very few facts in this world. They're all just perceptions and they're all just ideas. And we're believing them to be facts, but they're actually boxing us in. So the thing I like about this view of not actually having anything growing up and the thing that I think is powerful about that is I can like see it at face value and I can actually explore the idea without any preconceived ideas or beliefs. And then I can go, okay, like let's just isolate that. And do I like the idea of that? Like for example, I don't like the idea of hell because...
Sounds fire.
I don't like the idea of hell because like if someone like when a Christian comes up to me and tells me I'm doing life wrong even though I love my life and they like tell me that I'm going to go to hell. I'm like, well, I don't know if I can swear in here, but I'm like, well,
you can definitely fucking swear in here, bro.
I'm like, well, fuck you. Like, I love my life and you're trying to tell me I'm doing it wrong. Fuck you. Whereas if there's someone like Owen McManus, where the moment he walks in the door, he is radiating this energy. He's passionate. He's calm. He's energetic. He like is so respectful, so loving, and he's someone where you don't even need to do anything but the volume in your life turns down and he's just someone you want to be around. If he ever invites me to hang out, I'm there. He's got this crazy energy. He's living by what he believes and you can tell that it's working. And I love that because he is a better person. He is a source of good for this world. And you can just feel it by the way that you feel around him. Right. And so then when I ask him, dude, what's your secret? And he says, Jesus, I'm going to be more open to listening to what he has to say. And so like there's aspects of all different beliefs that when I take, I feel like they serve me and I want to replicate them in my life. Like one of the ones that I resonate with in Judaism as an example is they don't forgive straight away. Like a Christian's default is like if someone does you wrong, you forgive them. Whereas from my understanding, if you do a Jewish person wrong, they will confront you and say, hey, that crossed a boundary, don't do it again. And the reason I resonate with that is because then you're not going to get walked over all the time. And they do it in a respectful way, but they do it in a confident way that cements a boundary. And then people will respect that boundary.
Yeah, I was going to say when you say you don't like the concept of hell that much, like Judaism is lacking hell.
Yeah.
So it could be something to look into more. It's one of my favorite religions for sure. Yeah. It's very exclusionary, which I think is like a positive thing for religion, just because the ones who tend to proliferate or have proliferation built into their system tend to have been the most deadly throughout history. But also atheism has been quite deadly because communism proliferates as well. But
I like observing how people act based on their religion, not just like the actual religion itself. And because I am a clean slate, I just get to have that openness of being able to just explore how they act. And so without even like reading into Judaism, these are all observations. The loyalty that is in Judaism and how much they help each other. This is why they rule the world and they're so wealthy, right? Like if you're in their crew, you are getting looked after. The moment you do them wrong, gone. They will not respond to you. You are out. You're done. The loyalty is like through the roof. They just combine forces and they conquer.
Yeah.
And
I think also like one thing that's cool about it is they're one of the more discussion based, like oriented religions, as in like you can question a Jewish person's faith, like specifically to them, like not huge fans if you're just shitting on them on a podcast or a song. Shout out Kanye, yay. But like you can actually question it. Like so much of it is dialogue based, and like speaking with the rabbi, like there are some Catholics and Christians where like, yes, if they are in seminary or they're getting like a PhD in theology, it's going to be a really enjoyable conversation. But if they're just like kind of casual and you start to question their faith, it gets so wonky, whereas like most Jews are down to have the combo.
Yeah. And I guess it's just one of those things I don't resonate with like putting a name on someone like like Jesus, but I struggle to like see. I've just been seeing this girl recently.
Let's go.
Crazy connection. Wild. I've never felt this way before. And literally met her a few days ago. Crazy. Wild.
Let's go.
Wild.
Hopefully it wasn't during an ayahuasca experience, or hopefully it was.
No, it wasn't. It was crazy though. Like.
Oh wait, sorry to interrupt. We're going to go to the private feed now. If you want to hear about Chris's new potential love interest and his connection, if you want to hear about his favorite guests, what he's learned, if you want to hear just about more about the LA experience, I'm excited about that. His views on where podcasting is going, how he's built more anti-fragility in podcasting, then head to skmp.supercast.com. And other than that, if you're just watching this on YouTube, then thank you guys so much for your attention and consider subscribing. Peace.